The snowstorm had nearly killed him. His daughter shivered in his arms. Her tiny hands blew from the cold. When he saw smoke curling between the trees, he thought it was a dream. But inside that cabin, a fire still burned, and a note waited that would change everything. James Miller trudged through the white silence, each step heavier than the last. Snow clung to his worn boots, and the icy wind cut through his coat like knives. His daughter, Emily, barely 7, pressed against his chest, wrapped in his jacket. "It's okay, sweetheart," he whispered, though his lips were numb. He had been saying that for days, and he was no longer sure if he believed it. Once, he'd had a job, a home, a wife. But when illness took his wife and bills took everything else, all that remained was his promise to keep Emily safe no matter what. The road had turned into endless white. The last shelter they found had no heat, no food. Tonight, he feared the cold would win. Still, he kept walking. A father's love, after all, is the kind of fire that refuses to die. He almost didn't notice the smoke at first, a thin wisp curling into the gray sky. His heart skipped. Smoke meant fire. Fire meant warmth, maybe people, maybe danger. He followed the scent of wood and ash until, through the blur of snow, he saw it. An old cabin tucked among the trees. The windows glowed faintly orange. He pushed through the drifts, clutching Emily tighter. The door creaked when he pushed it open, but no one called out. The cabin was empty, yet the fire in the stone hearth still burned, casting golden light across the walls. A pot of stew simmered quietly on the stove. 2 blankets were folded neatly on the chair. "Hello," James called out, voice breaking. No answer, only the crackle of fire and the sound of his own heart pounding. On the wooden table lay a folded piece of paper. James hesitated, then reached for it. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. "If you found this, you were meant to eat, rest, and read on." His eyes flicked down to the next lines. "Years ago, I was lost here too. A stranger saved me. I rebuilt this cabin in his honor. The fire stays burning for the next soul who needs it." He stared at the words, hardly breathing. Someone had prepared this for him, for anyone desperate enough to stumble upon it. His eyes blurred with tears. He looked at Emily sleeping softly against his shoulder and whispered, "You're safe now, baby. You're safe." They ate in silence, the stew thick and warm, tasting like mercy. Emily's cheeks flushed pink again, for the first time in days. She smiled. "It's good, Daddy," she said, mouthful. He laughed softly, a sound he hadn't made in weeks. When she finally fell asleep on the bed, he tucked her in and sat by the fire. The warmth seeped into his bones, thawing years of sorrow. "Whoever you are," he whispered to the air, "thank you." On the floor, half hidden by shadows, he spotted a small leather journal. He wanted to open it, but exhaustion pulled him under before he could. The fire crackled softly as snow tapped to the windows, and for the first time in weeks, James slept without fear. Morning sunlight painted the room gold. Emily still slept, her face peaceful. James picked up the journal and turned the first page. The writing was old but steady. "My name is Thomas Reed. 20 years ago, I nearly froze to death in these woods. A hunter found me, shared his food and fire, and vanished before dawn. I built this cabin in his memory. He taught me one truth, that the fire you share is the one that saves you." James turned each page slowly. Thomas had filled the journal with stories of travelers who had stumbled upon this place, of small kindnesses, of second chances. The final page read, "If you are reading this, you're not alone. Take what you need. Leave something behind, even if it's only hope." James sat for a long time, staring at the fire. He could feel Thomas's presence in the quiet warmth, as if the man's spirit lingered in the smoke. He thought of all the strangers who had passed through, each adding their own small spark. He took out his pen, just one scrap of paper in his pocket, and began to write, "You saved my daughter's life. You reminded me that the world still has light in it. I'll carry this forward. I promise." He folded the note and slipped it into the journal beside the last entry. Before leaving, he fixed a broken latch on the window, stacked more wood near the hearth, and left one of Emily's mittens on the chair. "For the next person, Daddy," she asked. He nodded. For the next one. Weeks passed. James found work at a lumber yard in the next town over. The foreman, impressed by his honesty, gave him steady hours. He rented a small apartment, enrolled Emily in school, and started saving again. Yet at night, his thoughts always returned to cabin. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been part of something larger, an invisible chain of kindness stretching through time. He began leaving small notes around town, in library books, at bus stops, on cafe tables. Each one said the same thing. You're not alone. The fire still burns. He never signed them, but he liked to think Thomas would have approved. A year later, when the first snow returned, James packed a few supplies into his truck. Where are we going? Emily asked. To say thank you, he said. The forest was quiet when they arrived, the air sharp and cold. Smoke curled once again from the chimney. Someone else was inside. Through the frosted window, they saw a young woman rocking her baby near the fire. A smile touched James's lips. He left a small bundle on the doorstep, food, a blanket, and a note. Because of you, we lived. Because of you, I believe again. Emily added her stuffed toy beside it and whispered, for the next child. As they walked back through the snow, the cabin's light glowed behind them like a heartbeat in the forest. James turned once more to look. It's her turn now, he said softly. Back inside, the woman picked up the bundle, tears welling as she read the note. The fire crackled, steady and alive. Sometimes salvation doesn't roar. It whispers through strangers who never meet. The fire in that cabin never truly belonged to one person. It belonged to everyone who needed it. It was proof that kindness, once given, never dies. It only changes hands. And as long as someone kept it burning, no one would ever have to face the dark alone.